Morning. It is April the 7th. It's June the 7th. I am local in an area of the woods in a greater Greenway on the local state line greater area that I have probably spent the least amount of time in. And this is actually my second intro since I just found out the hard way my SD card was full on the camera. Long story short, I had planned to go to the Cobble Mountain Critter Festival this day, but things didn't work out that way. So this is kind of like my compensation move, and hope everyone there has a great time. I'm going to do some pattern sweeps through this area. A couple of weeks ago, for context, I was on the other end of this, and I'm coming in from the other area to kind of complete the cycle of that, since I was able to stay local but not go there. In the 30 minutes or the 30 seconds it took me to walk into the woods, the rain began, however, so I'm looking at a wet day up here. I looked at Vermont's conditions and even wetter up there, so you would have been soaked either way. It is what it is. We're going to make the best of the day, do a pattern sweep, see what we find. And again, this being an area I don't spend a lot of time in on average, I really don't know what we're going to find. So this one's going to be kind of a random stop and go kind of video, mainly because I keep the camera relatively dry, and that's the plan. So come on along, we'll see what we find. Thank you. We're monitoring the rain level. It is going to be kind of off and on according to the weather app. Assuming that was an accurate update, because I have about a bar in here right now. If that, it probably dropped off. So effectively yesterday I found out that government jobs are not as safe as you would think, and they're announcing layoffs due to budgetary shenanigans. And so my mental state slash near-term future kind of hit the shitter, so I'm kind of not feeling sociable, and that's why I did not go to the festival today. I hope everyone there, however, does have a great time. Please post pictures of that. I would have liked to have seen the talk given by Gene Tewksbury and Dave McCullough, an old-time Nezra buddy, as well as what's the guy's name? I can't. He's from Connecticut. That guy Mike from Connecticut, from Fairfield County, who seems like a good egg, and one day we'll probably meet him. I know there's a couple of other local people in Connecticut that one day we'll meet up and go for a look about in the woods, see what we find. I would have liked to have seen them. I haven't seen Mike Trainer in a while. He's given one at the end of the day, I guess, or, well, mid-afternoon. They said it goes till 9, so the rest of it would have been a nice day out, but I just, with everything going on this week, threw me off my game, and I guess I'm sulking, and I don't want to bring your festival down, so maybe next year. So what I was saying before, this is kind of like the other end of a section of woods I don't really hit as often. So we're kind of doing, this is the first time I've been down this trail, probably in, it's got to be at least 3 years. So I haven't been here in a while. And for context, when I was monitoring the infrasonic phenomenon in the winter, it was coming from somewhere in here. I don't expect that today because the conditions are different. But we're going to cover some other things, such as some life lesson stuff. So when I found this out yesterday, I don't know how other people handle the prospect of unemployment. I personally loathe it, detest it. My reaction was to send out a couple dozen resumes during work time because, well, they're not really committing to me at this point, so it seems only fair. As well as came home, and it's a time to improve diet, streamline things, get your mental health in gear, and work out more. So these are the best positive things that you can do in a situation like this. Little life advice. And hopefully that aligns the stars in your favor, so to speak. Get that off my chest. because I came out here today with the intention of just not... Why is my hair on my arm standing up? In a moment like this, I hear birds, okay. Listen immediately in a situation like that. This is more of a Bigfoot thing where you... Because a lot of times what'll happen is a couple of different things there. I guess it's just goosebumps, because what I didn't mention is yesterday it was almost 90 degrees. It's like basically fighting to be 65 today. Not cold, but a lot cooler than it has been. But from past experience, when you suddenly get something weird like that, chime in and shut up and listen. And a lot of times the forest is gone stone quiet. That's when you perk up and see if something's around. This time of year, I usually am up north more. So again, we're kind of doing a new thing while at the same time. It's not new in that I've been in here in other times of the year, but for this time of year it is. And one thing you need to do this time of year is be a lot more bear aware, because this area has a very decent black bear population. And I mean, granted it's Connecticut, but understand there are large fauna in here with you on occasion. And that's why I'm talking a lot too, just so they know I'm here. So, because I mean, if you look out that way, you'll probably see a bear a ways off. And I literally have been in a situation where I have probably about 2 miles that way. But in this stuff, you'll probably hear a meandering casually through, and that's kind of another life experience thing from being in here in the woods or in deep undergrowth in Vermont. A deer generally will hunker down. A moose is either going to A, stare at you from afar. You may miss him if he's got enough cover between you and him, because they're blinder than shit, but they have big ears and big noses, and they know you're there. They just don't know exactly where, so they're trying to zero in on you. Or they're going to spook and run, hopefully not towards you, because you will hear that. An 800-pound animal plus in terms of size going through undergrowth is going to not go unnoticed. But the casual hears something going through the undergrowth and not really speeding up or slowing down when you're there. The odds are 90% of the time that's a bear. He knows you're there. He's occupied with other stuff, and he probably doesn't care or have concern you're there if you leave him alone, but he's there. So that's one thing to be aware of. So those are some rambling thoughts today. My thoughts on some of the speakers. I was hoping to see Jean Tewksbury, because she is a eastern cougar researcher, and I actually have seen a mountain lion probably about 1.5 miles from here, and local hunters swear there's one in the greater area. So have seen him. So Jean is not wrong. Haven't seen him this year, but I did see him, and he did take a deer down. What might not keep him in the area, though, this was in the winter, and as I tell my cougar story, it was during a ice storm of all things. And yes, I do get out in crazy weather sometimes. And it was a time when I was working at an aerospace company, and they have a furlough every year. So I could get out 1, 2, 3, 4 times a week. So I got a day-by-day progress on this, and the kitty ended up losing his kill to a pack in the winter. They get a little more social of a combined coyotes and coy wolves, or coy dogs. And they took it. So I wonder if they kind of like harassed him for the meal, because you get to that time of the year, they get a little bit emboldened. You never seem to see them in the daytime in the summer, but in the winter, you'll see them pacing at a distance. And coy dogs can get fairly big, like the size of a decent-sized German Shepherd for comparison. Never had an aggressive encounter with one, knock on wood, but it's not to say it can't happen, especially if you're dealing with a group of them. Most of my run-ins, however, have been one or two, but they're not tiny. I would hold it for people that are listening to this from the other end of the country. Yotes in the east are bigger on average than yours. I think there's probably evidence to back that up, but from my own experience, they're not small up here. They're actually, you have some big doggies in here. So, one good thing about the rain is it kind of breaks up the skeeters a little bit. Nothing wrong with that, or the deer heads. Which again, for those that don't know, is a invasive insect from China. Looks like a flying tick of all things. And has the same habits except for maybe the disease. That's, jury's out on that. That's more when you Google it, they don't know. But possibility, so avoid them too. The fun with those little bastards are they fly. Again, for stick structure enthusiasts, you got a little arch thing there if you're into that. You got a tree break right there. What else we got? That's it in the immediate vicinity. That's just deadfall. I find myself rambling a little bit, so I'm going to do a reminder because we have a branch in the trail here. And this is the thing. There's 2 trails in here, and at least 2. And I know basically where they both likely come out, so you're not going to get lost in here, but trying to remember which one has the most interesting scenery. I think that one does, because it goes over to where a wetland is. Always check the water sources. Anyway, I will be back in a bit. I'm going to take a break and kind of tap my memory to see what's going on and try to ignore the fact that tree looks like an elephant's trunk. And we'll be back in a little bit. All right, we're back. We ended up taking the windier of the 2 trails, although I think this is the one I took a while back. There's an X for people that like stick structures. So a question was raised in the same group throwing the Cobble Mountain affair today. How come so many reports don't go into the database on the BFRO? And my own take on that is, one, there's a very good question raised, or point raised by Dave McCullough, who's one of the Squatchachusetts major guys, and he said they're not the only ones taking reports. They go to, like, Wes Germer, which I think is throwing it into the trash bin, but that's my own opinion. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole. It's not the point of the commentary. And there are other groups with other databases, often local to the region. I have one, believe it or not. And if you look at any one of my Facebook group pages, there is a link there to the database. There's about, I think at last count, 172 northeastern reports, some from NESRA, some directly from NESN. And so we have our own pipeline, and there are probably some in there unique that other people may or may not have. It's up to the witness if who they want to talk to, obviously. But they, that's a very valid point. I think also within a organization the size, at least theoretically, of the BFRO, you have, if they do their operation the way that NESRA before I did, or I do now, you don't just take the report and throw it out there on the database. You do the actual investigation first, and depending on any one of a number of logistical factors, that can drag that process out. You have completed investigations, you have fresh off the presses, and then you have the ones that are in progress. And if you have an ongoing situation that you want to keep a lid on to try to get as much evidence without outside interference, and I know there are some within the audience of that group who disagree with that, but they're wrong. So as somebody who is speaking from experience since 2004, that is the wrong opinion. You can't go charging in with a group of 40 people and expect the conditions that had the investigation begin in the first place are going to still be there. Too many boots on the ground. An ideal investigation team probably maxes out around 4 or 5 people. If you have a solid core group that works well together, which is not always the case. That's my opinion. Also, some people just don't report the stuff because of fear of ridicule, that kind of thing. In states where I operate, I notice I had a report come in, an old report, but a report come in last October where this was me out basically grouse hunting, not even doing anything Sasquatch related, and ran into a hunter. You know, we shared the trail for a bit, walking, you know, talking, basically, as hunters would say, talking shop. Yeah, cool little root ball right there. And we're talking, and then out of the blue, completely unprompted from me, he tells about a story. He used to go out in the woods with his grandfather, and they found these tracks. And I kind of started, I switched hats, like, okay, we can get dinner for free out here shortly, but right now you have a guy who is basically candidly giving you a Bigfoot report. So they can happen as casually as that. And they have. And in that neck of the woods, that's how a lot of them occur. They people aren't going to just come up and talk to you about things like that. That's a weird moose track, or is that a moose track? I'll ponder that one. All I'm really doing today is going down this trail to refamiliarize myself with the conditions in here. It's as windy as I remember, and there are animal tracks on here. This is basically the windy middle of the forest section where you have a whole lot of that. And if you get turned around, I've gotten lost in stuff like this in my own home state before. So never say never, it can happen. Back to people in the northern part of New England, they'll open up off after you've talked a little bit, but they kind of standoffish until they have a beat on you as much as the other way around. Always an interesting thing to find. So those are some reasons why there's not more in the Bigfoot, in the BFRO's database. The other thing seems to be, unless I'm wrong, and not being an actual member of the group, it seems like Moneymaker has taken more of a role in controlling the reports, and more of the recent ones are done by him, it seems. If anyone in the comments has insight as to why that is, I'd be curious to know. I mean, I'm not part of the group. It's really not my business, past petty, nosy curiosity, but an observation of mine. It seems like more being done by him, and if he's doing TV stuff and there's fewer people doing the reports, then obviously fewer ones are going to get reported. Nezro went through a period of time like that when I was the only one doing reports, not because I was holding a monopoly on them coming in, just other people had things going on or just didn't want to do the field work. There are those that like to go out camping and do the expedition thing, but there's also the witness interviews, and then the what you call a field investigation, where you go meet the witness and they take you through where things were and kind of gauge the story against what you see. Sometimes you show up a day before and take a look at it independently, and then you can gauge the witness too, depending on the nature of the story, and that goes both ways. I think I've said this before in a video, but I've seen some that were compelling and were honestly just people not sure what they saw and they wanted closure. I had one from Nezra years ago that was claiming some interestingly embellished, and I mean, I still think the story is embellished, but what was interesting was there was a day I was actually in that neighborhood doing other field work, and I thought I would take a look, and the conditions that the guy described are to a T. So I'm like, right in that area, I find that hard to believe. And then I went out there, and I came back a believer because it was There's one road through, and that road is very controlled by the water department. It's a watershed. And you can't get near the reservoir because you actually had rangers at stations down there keeping people out. Because he's like, well, there's checkpoints. There actually kind of are. And I've never driven through that area without encountering some kind of a patrol. They do patrol that area. So that's a little researcher lesson where you just listen to the story and don't just write it off necessarily and don't take it verbatim. Kind of you have to go out there and actually look into it. And then, I mean, there are some where I think the person just sent in, there's one that they had something on a trail cam. It's quite obviously their Labrador Retriever. And I think they're just doing it to have fun. These things happen too. All in good fun in there as far as they're concerned, I'm sure, but these things happen. Anyway, my thoughts on that question, I'm going to dwell more into this part because we're getting to the deeper part of the trail now, and I'm going to pay attention more to my surroundings. So I'll be back in a bit. We're going to do a segment break and be back again in a short while. Quick because the weather, rain is picking up for the worse. We ended up walking the trail that away all the way to where I started out 2 weekends ago. And there's a couple of different little side trails in here that I just discovered. So this little section isn't done yet. More exploring to do. That being said, because the rain is being a poop, I am going to put this one in the books where it is. Quiet day out in the woods, kind of wrestling with some mental soup. And like, subscribe, comment, suggestions on what you want to see me do. Once the situation is resolved or the sun comes out more, we'll be hitting Vermont more. And I know I've said that before, but we will, and that's where we're going to wrap this one up. So until next time, thanks for watching. And before my camera gives out because of water and sogginess, we'll catch you next time. Bye.